$1.4 billion. That is your active development pipeline, not net worth, not assets under management. Pipeline projects in motion, concrete being poured, cranes carrying your name on the side. 3 mayors have called you this month, not to ask for anything, to be available if you need something. 12 years ago, you had $6,300 saved and a duplex with a clogged drain at AM on a Saturday that was supposed to be yours. Level 1, the landlord. The drain doesn't care that it's the weekend. You are 31 years old. You have $6,300 in equity, a $180,000 duplex in a mid-sized city where prices haven't moved in a decade, and a tenant named Dale who texted you at 6:48 a.m. with a photo. You pull on pants. You drive 14 minutes. You spend 45 minutes under a sink that smells like standing water and someone else's life. This is not what the books described. The books described passive income. The books described tenants covering your mortgage while you slept. Both of those things are technically true. The mortgage is $1,140 a month. Dale pays $620. The unit below pays $580. You net $60 before maintenance, vacancy, and the slow, invisible erosion of a water heater that is 8 years older than it should be. You work a full-time job. The duplex is a second job that doesn't pay yet, but you understand something standing in Dale's bathroom that most people who talk about real estate have never felt. The asset is real. It exists in 3 dimensions. You can touch the pipes. You can hear the floor creak. When the market moves, it moves something physical, not a number on a screen, but walls and doors and the specific weight of ownership. The first rule arrives quietly, without ceremony. The deal is made at purchase, not at sale. You bought. Right. You put 3.5% down on an FA loan because that was what you had. The margin is thin, but the position exists. That is the only thing that matters at this level, that the position exists. You go home. You shower. You read about the BRRRR method for the 4th time. The drain is still clogging in the back of your mind when you fall asleep. Level 2, the operator. 2 years later, you have 4 units. Not because you had more money, because you had more equity. You refinanced the duplex at a new appraisal, $214,000, pulled $22,000 in cash, and used it as a down payment on a 4-unit. In the same zip code, the BRRRR strategy is not a strategy anymore. It is a cadence. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. The acronym has become a rhythm your financial life moves to. Cash flow is $47,000 a year across the portfolio. On paper, before the furnace in Unit 3, the vacancy in Unit 2 for 6 weeks, and the tenant dispute that cost you $1,200 in legal fees and a month of sleep, you still manage everything yourself. You field calls at dinner. You track rent payments in a spreadsheet that has become a living document, color-coded, annotated, updated every Sunday night with a discipline that surprises people who knew you before the duplex. You know which tenants pay on the 1st, which pay on the 5th, and which require a text on the 3rd to prevent a conversation on the 8th. You are not yet making real money, but you are becoming someone who understands money differently. The $47,000 is not income. It is fuel. Every dollar that doesn't go toward a repair goes into a reserve. Every dollar in reserve is proximity to the next position. The currency at this level is not cash flow. It is relationships with lenders. You have 3 now: a community bank, a credit union, and a portfolio lender who doesn't sell to the secondary market and doesn't care about conventional guidelines. That 3rd relationship took 8 months to build and is worth more than any single unit you own. You tell people you're in real estate. They picture something larger than this. You let them. Level 3, the portfolio. 14 units. $190,000 a year in gross rents. $138,000 after expenses. You hire a property manager. The first month after you hire her, you don't know what to do with the silence. A Tuesday passes without a maintenance call. A Friday without a tenant dispute. You sit in your living room and feel the absence of friction like a phantom limb. Then you understand what you've actually purchased. Not a service, but time. And time, at this level, is the only appreciating asset that matters. You understand leverage differently now, not as a concept, as a physical sensation. When your property manager handles a conflict in Unit 7, you are simultaneously reviewing a pro forma on a 12-unit in a market 40 minutes north. The same hour produces two outcomes. That is what leverage actually is, not debt. Multiplication of self. The 12-unit closes at $1.1 million. You bring $220,000 to the table, a combination of cash-out refinances, seller financing on a 5% second, and a private loan from a dentist you met at a real estate meetup in February who has been looking for yield. You have become, without formally intending to, the person who structures deals, not just the person who buys them. The dentist gets 8% annualized on a 2-year note. He is happy. You are happy. And you have learned something that changes the geometry of everything that follows. There is more private capital looking for a home than there are operators capable of deploying it responsibly. You are becoming an operator. The rule at this level is positional. The operator who controls deal flow controls everything downstream. You stop looking for deals you can afford. You start looking for deals you can structure. Level 4, the syndicator. The first commercial deal is a $3.8 million mixed-use building in a mid-sized downtown. 12 residential units above, 4 retail spaces below, a coffee shop anchor tenant with 7 years left on the lease. You don't have $3.8 million. You have $190,000 in liquid capital, a track record of 26 residential units, and a pitch deck you revised 11 times before sending it to 14 investors. 9 responded. 6 got on a call. 4 wired money. The structure is a 506B syndication. You are the GP. The 4 limited partners hold 70% of the equity in exchange for 100% of the capital. You hold 30% for finding the deal, managing the asset, and navigating every decision between acquisition and exit. The cap rate at purchase is 5.8%. Your projected IRR to investors over a 5-year hold is 16.4%. You believe that number when you present it. You have modeled it 47 different ways. Then the retail market softens. One of the ground floor tenants, a boutique fitness studio, vacates at month 18. The space sits dark for 4 months. You reduce the asking rent by 14%. You backfill with a nail salon that pays less but signs a 5-year lease. You never tell the investors about the 4 months you couldn't sleep. You send quarterly reports. The numbers are honest. The tone is measured. You learn that investor communication is its own discipline, separate from deal execution, equally important, and never discussed in the books about cap rates. The cap rate is what you pay attention to in the acquisition. The relationship is what you protect in the whole. You lose one investor at the end of the deal, not because of returns, but because of a phone call you didn't make in month 11 when the vacancy was extending. The 3 who reinvest with you for the next deal are worth more than the 1 who left. You now have $9.2 million in assets under management. The phrase still sounds foreign when you say it. You say it anyway, because the number is true. Level 5, the developer. You are not buying buildings anymore. You are making them. The first ground-up project is a 64-unit workforce housing development on a 1.8-acre infill site. Total project cost, $22 million. Equity raised, $6.4 million across 11 limited partners, 3 family offices, and a community development financial institution that requires affordability covenants on 20% of the units in exchange for below-market debt. You spend 4 months in zoning hearings before a single shovel moves. This is the thing nobody explains about development at this scale. It is a political business wearing a financial costume. The city planner who controls your entitlement timeline has more power over your project than your general contractor. The neighborhood association that shows up to the public comment session at PM on a Tuesday can delay your certificate of occupancy by 6 months if they are organized and your community engagement was insufficient. 6 months on a $22 million project at 7.2% construction loan interest is $792,000 in carrying costs. The neighborhood association does not think about that number. You think about nothing else. You hire a land use attorney. You hire a community liaison. You begin attending city council meetings as a regular presence, not as a petitioner. You understand, for the first time, that entitlements are not granted by process. They are earned through relationships maintained long before any application is filed. The project delivers 11 months late. The pro forma assumed 9. Investor returns compress from a projected 18.1% IRR to 14.3%. It is still a good deal. It is not the deal you promised. You make every LP whole on the carry shortfall out of your own promote. It costs you $340,000. It costs you nothing in reputation. Your next raise is oversubscribed in 3 weeks. Level 6, the major developer. The project that changes your scale is a $340 million mixed-use development on a former industrial site along a river that the city has been trying to activate for 19 years. You spend 7 years on it. From site control to ribbon cutting, 7 years. You are 44 when you close the land. You are 51 when the mayor cuts the ribbon. In between, you survive 2 recession scares, 1 interest rate environment that nearly kills the capital stack, a general contractor insolvency that requires you to rebid the project mid-construction, and a historic preservation dispute over a loading dock facade that delays your building permit by 8 months and costs $1.1 million in redesign fees. The loading dock is now the most photographed element of the building. You have renamed a street. The city council voted 6-1 to designate the main access road after the development's anchor, a name you proposed, a gesture the city accepted because your $340 million in private investment did what 19 years of planning grants could not. You have a hospital wing. You gave $4 million to the capital campaign because the CEO of the health system sits on the same 2 boards you sit on, and because philanthropy at this level is not charity. It is civic positioning. The people in your life number fewer than 20 who understand what you actually do. Your social calendar is composed entirely of people who control capital or control decisions. You attend events not because you want to, but because absence from certain rooms is itself a message. You have stopped explaining this to people outside the room. There is no explanation that works. You have $600 million in completed projects behind you. You have $480 million in active pipeline. The number that matters most right now is neither of those. It is the 3-acre site in the city's emerging innovation district that you have under contract for $18 million, with a 180-day due diligence period that expires in 6 weeks. 6 weeks to decide whether to commit $18 million of equity on a project that won't deliver for 9 years. You signed the extension. You already know you're building it. Level 7, the Skyline. The office is on the 34th floor of a building you developed. Glass on 3 sides. The city below is not a view. It is an inventory. You can name the ownership entity behind most of what you see. You know which sites are entitled, which are distressed, which are held by estates that haven't updated their basis in 30 years and will eventually be forced to transact. You know because your team tracks it. You know because the brokers call you before they call anyone else. Not as a courtesy, as a strategic calculation. Your active pipeline is $1.4 billion across 7 projects and for markets. You have 214 employees. Your development fees alone, separate from equity returns, exceed $28 million annually. You have 4 institutional equity partners, 2 pension funds, 1 sovereign wealth vehicle structured through a Luxembourg SPV, and a life insurance company allocating to real estate through a separately managed account you manage exclusively. 3 mayors have called this month. You didn't return 2 of the calls immediately, not as a power move, because the conversation requires positioning that takes a day to prepare. You know what they want before they say it. They want your next project to land in their jurisdiction. They are prepared to offer tax increment financing, infrastructure reimbursements, and accelerated entitlement timelines. The incentives are real. They are also the cost of doing business at the scale, not a gift, but a negotiated outcome between a city that needs tax base and an operator who can deliver it. You do not think of yourself as powerful. Power implies agency over others. What you have is something more structural. You are embedded in the system at a depth where the system itself adjusts around your decisions. When you pause a project, 400 subcontractor jobs pause. When you close a land transaction, the comparable sets for 6 surrounding parcels shift. You are not responding to the market anymore. In certain sub-markets, you are a component of what the market is. The trust circle is 11 people. 3 are inside your organization. 2 are advisors who have known you for 20 years. The rest are peers, other operators at comparable scale who share information with the understanding that reciprocity is the only currency that functions at this altitude. You had dinner last Tuesday with a man who controls $4.3 billion in commercial real estate across 11 states. The dinner lasted 2 hours. You discussed one specific site. Neither of you mentioned price. You will not discuss price for another 4 months. The conversation was about whether you trust each other's capital and timeline discipline. The answer, by the end of the evening, was yes. The deal will follow. There is no one in your personal life who would understand this. Not because they lack intelligence, because the context is too deep, the vocabulary too specific, the stakes too removed from anything that resembles ordinary decision-making. You have dinner with your family twice a week. You are present. You are also always, at some level, elsewhere. The city needed you more than you needed it. You understood this at some point in the last 5 years. You cannot identify the specific moment. It arrived gradually, the way all irreversible things arrive quietly, without announcement. Until one day, the situation simply is what it is, and has been for longer than you realize. The 3-acre Innovation District site breaks ground in 4 months. The projected delivery is 9 years from now. You will be 60. The project will outlast the political careers of everyone who approved it. It will outlast 3 or 4 cycles of the market it's meant to serve. You sign the construction loan documents on a Thursday afternoon. The signing takes 11 minutes. The room is quiet. The pen is ordinary. Level 8 the loop. Somewhere in a mid-sized city where prices haven't moved in a decade, a 29-year-old opens a spreadsheet for the first time that isn't someone else's. She has $6,400 saved. She has been reading about the Burr method for 6 weeks. She has identified a duplex listed at $172,000 with 2 existing tenants and a water heater that the listing describes as functional. She has run the numbers 14 times. The numbers work barely. If nothing goes wrong, she puts in an offer. On a Thursday, she thinks this is about passive income. She thinks the system rewards people who save and buy and hold. She believes, with the specific confidence of someone who has read enough to feel certain, and not enough to feel afraid, that the deal is the hard part. She doesn't know yet that the deal is the beginning. She doesn't know about the drain, the dentist, the zoning hearing, the loading dock, the mayor, or the dinner where nothing is said and everything is decided. She will find out. The market shifts. The crane moves. The city takes another step forward, carrying the weight of everyone inside it, the ones at the drain and the ones on the 34th floor, without distinguishing between them, without pausing, without memory of who came before. It was always moving. It will always move.